Hey friends, welcome back to this video. And in the last video we explored a little bit the dataset which we're going to use in the next couple of videos. And now we would like to import this into Power BI. You can see that I have opened up a complete new Power BI file. So just in case you still have the Power BI the easy way open, please save it, close it, and open a complete new report, because we start here from scratch. So in order to import the data, we have various options. We already know that. We can either go up here and click on Import Data from Excel, or we go up here, import data from Excel, or go to get data and also import it from Excel. Or click on more and wait for the pop-up window, the navigator, and then just specify what kind of data source you want. So for me, I simply click on import data from Excel here, and then I go to this PBI file, training 1. This is the one we want to use, and the one we have seen in the last video. Then I click on open, and just wait, and we are connecting to the file itself. So we see the navigator window, just a second, there it is, and it tells us now all the different kinds, in this case, of tables we have inside, as well as all the sheets we have in our dataset in here, right? So everything is available in here. So far, so good. Now, for us, as I said before, best practice, at least from my point of view, is import only the data you need. So in our case, we can go with the tables. That is why we have them here already created or prepared for you, and all you need to do is you need to select the specific tables you want to have. So what you could do is you could, for instance, I go in here, click on this one here, and then I could hold my Shift key if I want, click on the last one, and this would be one way to select several tables at once. Or of course you can also tick them individually, because what I also want is my customer data, which is this one, and that's actually it. So we have our three, in this case, our three facts tables, which is referring to the sales table here, and we also have the product data, location data, and the customer data. So that is fine. The other ones, we do not need them for now. As I said, here you could also go with these options down there, but we would like to focus on the table structure itself. And I also like to use the salespeople. So I already forgot those. I also want to have them in here as well. So that's, from my point of view, experience, this is the better option, because also something I'd like to give you here, my experience is only import the data you need into Power BI. So avoid importing additional or too much data, because what it does actually, it slows your report down, and then the refresh takes longer and everything loads longer and it's simply slower. The report is slower. So you want to keep the data, the import of the data, as small as possible. Okay? So that is that for that. And then we can go to transform data. So this time we don't want to load it directly, we want to transform it. Because, as I said before, oftentimes our data is not yet in the right format. There are a few transformation steps we need to do. We need to do some data cleaning or pivoting, any other kinds of options and preparation steps. And this can be done in the Power Query editor. So this time we do not load the data directly. Instead we go to transform data. So if you click on transform data here, we simply wait and a new window will appear. At first, here, the queries are processed, so the data will be analyzed, and now you see there's a new window appearing here. This is the so-called Power Query editor. You can also read this in the top line here. And by the way, if I make this smaller, you see that this is an additional window, which is currently opened here, and the report is still there in the background. So let me double-click here to see it big again, in full size. Now here, this is actually where the magic happens. This is where we can adjust, transform, shape, clean our data the way we want it. And there are a lot of options in the ribbon bar up there, under Home, Transform, Add Column, and so on. And we will explore some of them in the next couple of videos. But for now, let's actually start or focus on preparing our dataset. So what do you have? Well, we have all the tables, which we selected here in the Queries window. You can see we're 7 tables, actually, and if you select one of them, you can get a preview of the data in here, right? So if I select product data, I would see the product data, sales, I would see sales data, and so on. So depending on what kind of table you select, you see the data itself in here. What you also can see is then, on the right side, there are the query settings. So they are important because you can see at first the property window, which allows you here to specify the name of the specific table. So currently it's location data, but if I would say this is only location, for instance, and press enter, then you see that not only it adjusts here, it also will adjust here, right? So this allows us actually to rename our tables. And let's actually do that for location, then also do that for customer, select customer, and refer here to customer, press enter, and then also for the salespeople. So I select salespeople here and also rename it here. By the way, you could also double click on here And there's also an option to rename it. So here again, we have various ways to get exactly the same result. So if I type in salespeople here, people, and press enter, you see that I've renamed it here. And of course, this is also reflected here under the property section in the name on the right side. Next to that, we have the applied steps window. Also interesting, because this window tracks all the steps which we do. So all the cleaning steps which have been applied will be tracked here. And it's like a history, where you can always go back and see what a specific, in this case, a specific step did. And I can show to you maybe, for instance, for the sales. If I click on sales, you can see the applied steps by default is always source, navigation, and change type. This will be done automatically for you. So for instance, if I take on source, this is how the data looked like at the beginning. So we can see all the names in here for the tables, and we can see the data. And if you click next to the data itself, just a second, if I click on here, you get a little preview at the bottom of what this data actually looks like. Now what Power BI did automatically for us is then it expanded the data. So if I go to navigation, click on next to it, and be aware, don't click on the cross symbol, because this would mean that you delete a step. That's not what you want to do. But click on the next option here, and you see that now Power BI has expanded the source and loaded the table. The last step here is a change type, because what you see basically currently here is that the order ID has a type of ABC123. If you see something like that, that means your data type is currently not specified. What Power BI did then was taking a look at each column individually and specified what kind of data type it thinks it is. And this is be done here in a change type. So if you click on change type here, you see that now all these columns here have a data type attached to them. So ABC is a string or text, or for instance, this calendar icon is referring to a date field. This 123 is referring to absolute number. And there's also 1.2, for instance, this would be the decimal number. The data types itself, if you want to change it for a column, you can simply click here on the icon itself. And there you can see all the data types which are available. So for instance, if I would like to see my quantity not as a whole number, but as a decimal number, I can simply click on decimal here, 1.2. Then I can change, do I want to change the column type in the current step, which is this one, or do I want to add a new step? So if I type on new step here, you will see that now a new step appears here, which is change type number 1. And now I have here 1.2, which is now referring to the fact that the quantity is now a decimal number, not a whole number anymore. Even if you don't see any decimal numbers here, it is now Power BI now treats the column here as a decimal number. So if you want to remove step, you can simply now click on the cross symbol here, and now you can see that the quantity is back 1 to 3, and also this step has been removed. So that is why this applied steps window is really, really helpful, because you can do a lot of transformations, and then you can simply remove them by clicking on the cross symbol. And you can always take a look at each specific step. If you click on a step here, you always see of what the data actually looked like before the step got applied. Okay? So this is actually now where we are. So that's what we have. So what I like to do here is, for my data transformation here, is I like to create here a separate file, a folder, actually a structure, which helps me to, well, it's more a visual way to help me understand what kind of data do I really have and want in my report, and what's the data which is currently there, but I do not need it. And you'll see what I mean just in a minute, but what I like to do is I like to right click here and say I like to create a new group. If you do this new group here, you can name this group. For instance, this will be the model data. I call it model data, for instance. And then you can also type in a description. So for instance, these are the tables relevant to our model. So we're done. And now I click OK. And you see that now a new folder appears here, which is this model data. And also you have a second folder, which is this other queries. And what I like to do is I like to select specific tables here. I can hold my shift key to select all of them. So these, this one, my control key, this one, and this one. And now I can simply drag them into the model data up there. And if I do that, now I have a structure. Now I already know now that here, the model data, these are the tables which I want to load into my data model. And these ones, they need additional preparation, which we do. But this is only for me, so to see it visually, when I reopen my, in this case, the Power Query editor, that I see exactly, okay, these are the relevant tables. And these are maybe tables which I used, but these which I do not want to import. It's not required to do that, it's just for me, So I like to do it to have a visual separation between the tables. So if you're done with that, then we can actually dive into these three tables here. So the preparation step which is required here is the following. We currently have three tables here. So sales for 2021, 2020, and 2019. Now what we want is we want to have one sales table. So the best kind of model structure is that you have one fact table, or maybe several facts table, but normally one facts table would be the best, and several dimension tables. So that would mean that we have one big sales table, which consists of all the three sales table in one big table, and we will then connect our other tables like location, product data, customer and salespeople, and by the way, I want to rename this as well, and we want to connect those tables to our big sales table. So that is the idea. That is the model structure we want to have. So before I dive deeper into the sales, let's actually also fix this one here. Click on it, and then let me remove this one here, and simply call it product. Okay, so here we go. Now back to our sales table. So the most crucial or important thing here is that the sales table from the structure itself are exactly the same. So they all have order ID, product ID, location ID, and so on. Say the structure of those tables is exactly the same. That's the first thing which we need to have. It's a prerequisite. Okay, so how can we combine those tables now? Well, there is an option under Home. If you take a look at here, there's a merge queries and append queries. So what is our goal? What we want is we want to stack them, right? So we would like to have a big sales table which consists of 19, 20, and 21 simply in one table. So this means that we do not want to merge them, instead we want to append them. And you can see it with maybe this little icon here. Appending means simply stacking them horizontally. This is exactly what we want, right? So simply put in first 19, then 20 below, and then 21 below this table. So that's what we want. Or the other way around. So the order itself does not matter for us. But what we need is we want to have one table based on these three tables. So that is why I can go to append queries, and there are two options. You can either click directly here, or what's oftentimes helpful is clicking on a little down arrow, which you also have here. Because if you click here, what you see is that a new window appears, just a second, and here we have the option to concatenate rows from two tables into a single table. Or if you select 3, then you can select 3 tables to connect. Now beside this, if you go to the little down arrow, you can here also specify not only append queries, but also append queries as new. Now what is the difference? The difference is if we use append queries based on, for instance, the current table we have, if I go to 3 tables here, then here I could specify what tables do I want to append to the current table. In this case it's 2021, because this is the one I had it selected here when I clicked on append queries. But this would mean that I will change this sales table 2021. If I want to have instead a new sales table, so I want to leave my 19, 20, and 21 the way they currently are, and I want to add an additional table which contains all 3 of them, then if I want to have that, I cross this out and go back to queries, click on the little down arrow and say I want to append queries as new. If I click this option here, then now I can specify, do I want to have 2 tables or more? In our case we have 3 sales tables, so we need to go with 3 or more. And then we can say we'd like to have sales table 2021. Then we also need 20 and 19. You can hold your shift key to select several of them, or control key, and then you go to add, and now you have the structure. So this would mean that now we create one new table based on the 3 tables we have, but this table will contain all the sales years, so all 3 years. And of course, if you have later on in your own data set with even more tables, you can also append more of them. Then if you click OK now, you will see that now we have a new table here, which is currently named append1, and this table now contains all 3 years. And I can check this easily by clicking on the order date. So if I click on order date here, you see that list may be incomplete. If I click on load more, in just a second, and now you can see we have 2019 data inside. If I scroll down, we can see 2020 data inside. And if I scroll to the end, we can also see 2021 data inside. So this already tells us that now we have one table in exactly the same structure as our 19, 20, and 21, but this table simply contains all of them combined. And the final thing, of course, what we want to do now is we want to rename this. So here I simply say this is my sales. Okay. Press enter, and then we have our table. And this table now, I simply drag it and drop it also on top inside the model data, because these are the tables I want to have in my model. So that's how we can combine several tables. Notice, please, again, that the important thing is that all these tables have the same data structure. This is required. Now, I would like to actually remove those tables, 19, 20, and 21, from import in the data model. The idea is that we need those tables, that is why we selected them first, but we only need them to create our sales table, which we already have here. What we do not want is we do not want to load them into the model. Because, I already mentioned that before, what is our goal? Our goal is to load all the data we need in our model, but avoid to load data we do not need. So we want to keep our data set small, and therefore our model small, because this means that our performance is better. So what I like to do here is I like to right-click on the sales table, and then you can see additional options here, like deleting them, rename, and so on. So by the way, renaming could also be done by right-clicking here. But the point here is I can't delete the table, I need the table. Because our sales table is based on these. What I want is I want to use those two options. These are the interesting options for us. The enable load and the include report and refresh. What we want to do is we want to untick the enable load for all the three tables. So untick it here, right-click here, untick it here, and also right-click here and say untick it here. So what you see, hopefully, is that now those tables are written in italic and they are in a gray font color. And what this should mean or tell us is that now those tables don't get loaded into the model, because the enable load here is unticked. Still, the include and refresh is still ticked. So what is our goal here? Our goal is that whenever the underlying data set changes, so let's say the sales data in 2019 or 2020 or 2021 changes, because 2021 is not done completely, right? That might be the case, and hopefully, that we have additional sales in this year, and there is additional new data in this specific table here. Now, what we want is that when we refresh our data, we would like to see that the new data will be part of our sales table, but we don't want to load the sales table 2021 in the model. And that is why we right-clicked here and say we would like to disable the load, but we still include it in refresh. So that means that if the underlying data set changes, the sales table, which we have created here, will reflect those changes and we will have the latest data. But we still, when we load the data into the model, won't see sales 2019, 20, and 2021 as separate tables. We only see one table, which is the sales table. So that is exactly our goal, and this is what we accomplish here. By simply deselecting the enable load, we avoid to load the data into the Power BI model. We only load the sales table, but this sales table will still reflect the latest changes in the underlying dataset. Okay? And that's what we do here. So that's it actually for the first part of our Power BI model here, preparation. And in the next video, I'd like to dive deeper into the dates table, and also then we cover a few of those transformations which are available in here. Okay? So that's it for this video. In case you got any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.